Thanks, John. As has been, I think, my experience with a lot of these Zoom calls, my dogs have been nice and quiet for the last hour, and they just started barking at something outside. So, bear with me if you hear that in the background. So, over the weekend, after talking to John a little bit, I decided that to show off some of the interconnectedness of the smart devices and a lot of these smart assistants, that I'd actually shoot a bit of a video. So, I've got that embedded in the presentation. So, we'll get to that here shortly. And that should actually give you guys a really kind of bit of an overview of how a lot of my devices do interconnect. To both Ed and John's points earlier, I'm a bit of an early adopter in this space. And actually, on business trips before they were even available in Canada, I did go pick up, Amazon Echo devices, make sure I could kind of program them to work at home, and then later the Google Assistant devices, so the Google Home, once it was available. And that's, I think, a common theme for me here because I did that even with an iPhone. I realized, John, actually back in 2007 when it first dropped, I took a trip down to Boston and bought one and had to jailbreak it. So I think the early adopter moniker kind of fits really well. The big overview I wanted to kind of give about how these devices can really help with accessibility needs is both kind of interacting with a lot of basic functions in and around the home, as well as, to John mentioned, connecting to media, whether that's music, news, weather, loved ones via phone-like services and VoIP. So the devices can do a wide range of things. Another conversation John and I had, pretty detailed, is the setup of the devices themselves, just a Google Home or Amazon Echo, or an Apple HomePod itself is fairly simple, but as you start to add more and more devices, you do start to have potentially kind of some setup costs involved. But there are lots of different individuals who can help that. And, if John successfully advocates for kind of credits for seniors, I think that that'd be a great opportunity, both seniors and anyone with accessibility needs, to have the setup and installation of devices that'll improve their quality of living. So the smart speakers John showed you include video now. So speakers is actually even a broader term than it used to be. Predominantly big players are Google, Amazon, and Apple, with other brands kind of biting at the edges of that. In order to interact with media on televisions, there are smart TVs with built-in assistants, but there's also lots of devices now that you can actually plug right into the TV. I unplugged one of my Chromecasts if I was going to do a show and tell, but the video does a better job of that. But so Chromecast would be Google's solution. Amazon has their Fire TV, Apple TV, and then brands that you might not be as familiar with, like Roku, that are kind of providing third-party services. The smart bulbs that I've gone with in my home are all by Philips. So it's the Philips Hue system, which was one of the more common and easier to integrate solutions. However, there's smart bulbs from basically every different light bulb manufacturer. Even actually IKEA has their own smart light bulb brand. So there's lots of availability there. And smart light bulbs often actually feel like the type of device that might be a bit, I don't know, superfluous for many people. Why do they need to be able to control their lights via, a phone or a, smart assistant? But it actually is a tremendous value add into the homes, both for not having to get up and find a light switch, especially if it's in a dark room, especially for individuals who are visually impaired. But being able to set up motion sensors in hallways to turn lights on automatically can really improve some mobility issues there. Smart locks are another kind of fairly new addition to the smart home ecosystem, and there's a wide range of these. In my home, we've gone with August as the smart lock brand, partially actually because we started purchasing those for a condo that was in a multi-unit building. And what we really liked about the August smart lock solution is that it doesn't replace the whole lock. So I'll show that in the video, but it just actually goes onto the back of it. So you don't have to worry about changing the hardware, changing your keys, or anything like that. Thermostats are another area that's kind of seen a big change in this space, both because some of them, like the Nest thermostat, are themselves smart. So it'll actually learn based on settings that you don't have to program in, just how you use it. So it'll adjust the heating for the times of the day when you most need it. Ecobee, even popular brands like Honeywell are getting into that space too. And these can interact with the smart home speakers. Security cameras are actually a new addition into our home for this. We debated actually installing them, but some of the brands, like actually you see Blink on the end and Arlo in the middle, are great because they are easy to set up. You don't actually even need to run any wires. They connect to your Wi-Fi network, so that for exterior cameras outside the home, you're not drilling holes in your siding or having someone install a complicated system. And I mean, years ago, I actually worked in audio video installation, and setting up security systems used to be a massive undertaking. Whereas when I set up our Blink cameras, it took about half an hour to set up half a dozen of them. This was before a lot of you joined on. Ed was, I think, trying to make fun of me, but I happen to own about 6 Roombas in our house, partially because of a lot of stairs, but also these are actually starting to expand in their functionality beyond just being robot vacuums, which they initially were. So you've got, mopping capabilities, so effectively a robot Swiffer wet jet. And like I mentioned, I've got some dogs here and a cat, so having Roomba vacuum basically every single day is a godsend for sure. And then the other thing I want to make sure that I added into the presentation is the health and fitness side. So these can integrate into your smart devices like your Google Homes, so you can check in on them. But I really wanted to actually say it's made a big difference. So my partner, Jennifer, had to have a surgery this year, and because of the concerns around COVID, she wasn't able to go to see the doctor nearly as often for some of the checkups. The doctor actually strongly recommended getting a smartwatch that could do O2 levels for her blood. And so she picked up one of the Fitbit Versa watches, which I don't have pictured here, but Fitbit was the second there from the left. And that device actually was able to give her constant readings and let her know if she actually did need to go see the doctor at a time when seeing the doctor was more difficult than usual. In terms of the fitness, obviously smart scales is a important function as part of that. And those fit into ecosystems of health and fitness devices that can kind of aggregate a lot of that together. Last time I went to the doctor, I don't know if he was expecting it, but I had a Excel file with all of my heart rate basically for the last 3 months since I'd seen him last. So lets him actually look at things in between our visits. So hopefully this video works here for everyone. But I'm going to play that. It's about 10 minutes, and I'll actually give a warning that if you do have smart devices from either Google or Amazon nearby or within audio range, you might want to mute them or put in a headset, because they will definitely get triggered by some of the wake phrases. These Google Home speakers are actually the kind of brain or the main control system that we use throughout the entire house. We've got them peppered in basically every room. But they do everything from let us know what the weather is or temperature in the house. They can control all of the smart devices that I'm going to walk through and show you. But we use it more for very mundane things like, okay, Google, set a 15-minute timer called cooked chicken.
Sure, a 15-minute timer called cooked chicken. And we're starting now.
Like that.
We also use it for
finding out answers to common questions. Okay, Google, what's a common substitute for time?
Oregano. Here's a summary from the website occasionallyx.com. Fresh or dried, oregano makes a great time substitute. The flavors are very similar, both being in the mint family, and it's an almost imperceptible switch. You can use oregano for thyme in virtually any recipe.
Okay, Google, stop. So that was a great example of one of the potential problems with having these devices in basically every room. It's really easy for
multiple devices to catch you. And for answering questions like what is time or what is a good substitute for time, answers like oregano are perfect. But if I was setting a timer and the dining room got me, I might not hear it go off if I'm in the kitchen.
Okay, Google. Good morning.
Good evening, Nathan. The time is 8:40 p.m. Right now in Upper Tantallon, it's -3 degrees and mostly cloudy. Tonight, it's predicted to be -4 degrees and mostly cloudy. Due to current wind conditions, it feels like it's -7. By the way, you need to clean for his chin. Have a nice day. Here's the latest news.
Okay,
Resuming
Google,
NPR
stop.
News.
So it just reminded me that I needed to clean my cat's chin.
Obviously, if the Google's still
Active, if it's still listening to you, it's easy for it to get confused. But when it's off,
like it is now, I can say effectively anything except its wake phrase, okay Google, without it getting confused. Hey Google, if it's that cold, what's the temperature in the kitchen?
I understood. What's the temperature in the kitchen? Is that right?
yes.
Heating is set to 18 degrees with a current temperature of 20 degrees.
So that's our Nest thermostat that it's plugging into, which is actually just on the wall right over here. You can see it's set to 18 degrees, just like Google told us. Okay, Google, set the kitchen to 16 degrees.
Sure, setting kitchen to 16 degrees.
And while you can see it changed immediately, and I'm obviously within arm's reach, so I could have done that with any traditional thermostat, we can do this from anywhere in the house. So it's a very common thing we make sure to do before we went to bed at night, or to adjust it throughout the day.
We also regularly use our Google Home speakers as speakers, surprisingly enough, for everything from music to news. Hey Google, play some music.
Playing some music on Spotify.
Okay Google, what's in the news?
Here's the latest news. From NPR News Now at 8 p.m. today.
Live from NPR News, I'm Janine Herbst.
Okay Google,
House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy.
stop.
Hey Google, what's the temperature outside?
In Upper Tantallon, Nova Scotia right now, it's -4 degrees. Due to current wind conditions, it feels like it's -8.
That's probably one of our more common questions when we have to go walk the dogs. Once you have the system set up, the Philips Hue bulbs are actually really great because they fit into any of your traditional lamps or other light fixtures. And then you can say broad statements like, hey Google, turn on the office lights. Or specific ones like, hey Google, turn off the flower lamp. These little motion sensors from Philips Hue are very convenient in hallways or other spaces that you really only need the lights on for a few minutes. Just by entering the hall, the lights will turn on. You don't have to worry about looking for that light switch. While most of our smart home controllers are the Google devices, we decided to introduce some Amazon Echo devices into kind of the collection too. This Echo Show is really great because with our security cameras, we can issue commands like, Alexa, show me the front door.
Okay.
So it's connecting to the Blink cameras, which are our smart cameras that we have all around the house. You can see it's getting a live feed outside there. It's dark out there, which is why they are in kind of its night mode. But you can see the lights that are connected to the house. Those are actually Philips Hue lights also. So let's try to actually do something fun with those. Okay, Google, set the patio lights to pink.
All right, changing 2 lights to pink.
The camera in night mode didn't really
They picked that up, but you can see that they did something. Okay Google, turn off the patio lights.
Okay, turning 3 lights off.
There you go. You can see those lights are actually quite far away from where I'm standing at the moment. But with the smart home devices, you can control all kinds of things. Smart locks, like this one from August, are useful because you can lock or unlock them from either your smart home controllers or a smartphone. Okay, Google, lock the front door.
Sure, requesting to lock front door. Front door has been locked.
And with the August smart locks, if you're worried about security of someone just shouting at your house to let them in, there are security measures in place to stop that. So if I were to say, okay, Google, unlock the front door,
Can I have your PIN?
It'll ask for my PIN in order to get in. One thing that I really love about the August smart locks compared to some of the other smart locks is that you don't actually have to replace the entire lock. So it's great for actually living in a multi-unit building, apartments, condos, anything like that. So this device actually just bolts onto the back where the deadbolt was. And so you can release it. And then this plate just swaps in and out where the old deadbolt mechanism went. So the lock is exactly the same, no changing keys, no external hardware that's visible from outside of your home. Pairing smart vacuums, like this one from iRobot, with the smart home devices makes for a really powerful combination. Okay, Google, start Eufy.
All right, starting Eufy.
Using smart TV attachments that actually work with basically any modern HD TV, like this one, the Google Chromecast, is a great addition too, because you can easily do things like a nice personalized slideshow, as me at a video game conference, but also be able to control it with, once again, your smart home controller. Okay, Google, play Bridgerton.
Got it. Bridgerton from Netflix.
So with a simple command to the Google Home, it's able to know the show I want was on Netflix, to use Netflix to pull up an episode of the television show, and play it on the TV in the same room as the Google Home device. Furthermore, when you're using the Google Home to control your television experience, it makes searching for a remote a thing of the past. You can do anything from saying, okay, Google, pause. Okay, Google, resume. Okay, Google, set the volume to 20%. Okay, Google, stop. In this shot, you can actually see my blink camera in the top left corner, but I was going to show you one of the more for fun features that we use with our Philips Hue lights. Instead of Christmas lights, sometimes we just say, okay, Google, set the patio lights to green. So yeah, that gave a pretty good overview of a handful of the different devices that we have set up in the home. We've got a few other kind of options that are a bit more complicated to set up, but surprisingly, all of that, which does seem complicated, was more or less just out of the box that someone with a bit of familiarity with the smart devices would have no problem setting up. So whether that be the individual who's going to be the end user, or family, friends, caregivers, or installation professionals if need be. So I hope that we're able to have lots of time for some questions after the fact, but I know we've got at least one more presentation. So I'll give it back to you, John.